That not my name.
Unwelcome everyone to another episode of Bizarro Style. I am Bizarro. I hope you're doing well. I want to first thank you all for all the views that I've gotten lately, the increase in my number of subscribers. I really appreciate it. It warms my heart, or maybe I should say chills my heart, to see how my channel is growing, so I really appreciate that. I had a request from someone in Alliance that I'm part of their Discord chat. They had made a request for me to do a video on gear, and so I wanted to honor that request and put together a video that is sort of a more basic video on gear, but I'm hoping that there will be some nuggets in here for advanced players as well, or veteran players. So with that being said, I'll just get right into it. The place I want to start is in the upgrade events. If you look in the upgrade events, you'll notice that across the week there are 3 events geared around the various affinities in the game. It is Sunday night for me when I'm recording this, so it is the mystical night where you can go in and farm gear for mystical characters. On Tuesday night you can farm gear for energy characters, and on Thursday night you can farm gear for physical characters, and then of course on Saturdays you can actually farm gear for all characters. Now I say Saturdays because I'm on Eastern time in the United States, so if you're across the international date line, those days might be different for you. But that's how they rotate for me each week. So that's the first thing you want to know, and we'll go back in there in a second. The second thing you want to know is, what is the purpose of gear? And to understand what the purpose of gear is, I wanted to take a look at one of my characters sort of on the lower end here that still needs some gear upgraded. And I'm going to look at Wonder Woman, Champion of the Amazons. So each one of your characters will have what are often referred to as primary stats and secondary stats. So your primary stats are here under this what looks like a graph button, a bar graph button. And you can go in here and you can see what your character's statistics are. And this is an interesting thing because sometimes I'll see debates in the forum that will say, "Ooh, who's the strongest character in the game?" And it's not really up for debate, because you can look at these stats and we can figure out who is the strongest character in the game. So what we see is that you have strength, agility, stamina, intelligence, hit points, speed, critical chance. So your critical chance is the chance that you will perform a critical hit, and your critical value is how much damage do you do based on your normal damage when you perform a critical hit. Now, what is not known to some people is that there are actually some secondary stats in the game as well. So if we look here at Wonder Woman's gear here that I need to upgrade, you can see that it is a mix of primary and secondary stats. So the primary stats are the ones that we see that we just looked at: the strength, the critical chance, and the critical value. But we also see something here called P damage, and we also see something here called AP. What do those mean? So P damage is your physical damage. That's how much physical damage your character does in the game. There are 2 types of damage: physical damage and special damage. Special damage is usually the preferred damage because it tends to ignore affinity and do more damage than physical damage. The other one you see here is AP, which is affinity power. So your affinity power is how much extra affinity damage do you do. So because Wonder Woman is a mystic character, she's going to do more mystical damage, which would mean that against an energy character, she will do more as we upgrade that stat. But there's actually more here, and we can look at more secondary stats that are not listed under the character. So you can see agility, stamina, hit points, and critical chance. Those are all things that we're used to from that bar graph button. But we see something called RES here. So this is resistance, and this reduces special damage received by the character. So you have basically, because you see that with the other gear that we can increase the amount of special damage we can do, RES allows us to resist more special damage. So let's see, let's keep going. So there's others. So the DEF are essentially our defense, and this reduces physical damage. So we saw P damage before, which increases the amount of physical damage we can do. And then this value here, the DEF, reduces the amount of physical damage we take when we're taking damage. Let's see. Which one have I not seen yet? All right, so we see physical damage again, the P damage, intelligence, critical chance, and critical value. And then we see the AP, which increases extra affinity damage. So just to lay out the secondary characteristics, you have physical damage, which is abbreviated by PDMG, special damage, which is abbreviated by SDMG. So those are your two types of damage. So PDMG will increase the amount of physical damage you can do, and SDMG will increase the amount of special damage that you can do, as well as the amount of healing that you can do. Now, you're going to also notice ones, as you can see here, one called AP, and there's also one called AR. So as I said, AP increases the extra affinity damage that you do. So how much damage can you do as a mystic character against other affinities? And then your affinity resist, or AR, reduces the extra affinity damage that you take from other characters of the opposite affinity. And then finally, which are two that I mentioned before, are DEF, which is your defense. That reduces the amount of physical damage, and your resistance, RES, which reduces the amount of special damage that you receive. So the point is to say that all those characteristics, or I should say statistics, of your character are affected by really three things. They're affected by your level, your rank, and your gear. So if you're leveling your character and ranking your character, but you're not gearing your character, you're missing out on a lot. And that's because the total value of any statistic of your character is equal to the base value plus the growth modifier times the level of your character plus any gear bonus that you get. Now, I know that's a lot to take in all at once, so let me explain that. So your base value is simply the value that if your character were the very first rank, you just opened them up, and they were level 1 with no gear, that would be your base value, the base value of all the stats of your character, both the primary stats and secondary stats. And then the way you can increase that is by adding the growth modifier. Now, the growth modifier is what you get every time you rank up a character. And when you see that little screen that pops up when you rank a character up, and I wish I had a character I could rank up, but I am short on Legendary Essence. But if you rank up a character, you'll see a screen pop up that will show you what the growth modifiers are for the stats of your character, which means it's multiplying, it's going to multiply those values. And what it's multiplying the values against is what your level is. So just like when you rank up your character, when you level up your character, you also see that your stats go up. So just to sort of recap what I'm saying, you have the base value of your character, and to that you add the growth modifier times the level of the character, and then what you add to that is the gear bonus. Now, if we look at the gear bonus from anything that I've added so far, what you can see under the stats of the character is those numbers in green that say plus 215 for strength, plus 140 for agility. Those are all the bonuses that I'm receiving for having upgraded my gear. So if you're only ranking up your character or leveling up your character, then you are missing out on part of the way to strengthen your character, which is through these different types of gear. So one thing that I will show in the video version of this, in case you're listening to audio only, is I'm showing a chart that shows all the different types of gear in the game based on the different affinities. So if you're looking at this chart, you'll see that the first column is energy. So anything here below energy in green, these are all the different types of gear for an energy character. So you've got what's called fifth dimensional energy, quantum field energy, antimatter energy, and astroforce energy for energy characters. For physical characters, you've got the promethium piece, the inertron piece, the valorium piece, and the nth metal piece. And then finally, for mystical characters, you have the Starheart shard, the chaos crystal, element X, and your source spark. Now, the reason you want to pay attention to these is because for each affinity, there are certain gear pieces that are really easy to get and some that are not so easy to get. And I'll show you some examples on my characters here. So if we look at Wonder Woman, for example, who's a mystical character, you can see that I'm missing the level 2 source spark. So this is one of the more rare pieces of gear for a mystical character, and I'm always short on this. But you notice that for level 3 of this, that I have plenty. However, for level 1, I'm also somewhat short. Not a lot short, but as I start getting up to higher gear levels, I'll need more of these. So what that means is that for the source spark, level 1 and level 2 of the source spark are hard to find. And what you want to do is start to learn which of the pieces of pieces of gear, or I don't know what the technical name for these things is. Well, I guess they're materials. You want to learn which of the materials are more rare than others in the game. And the reason for that, I'm going to take you out into the shop. If you go over to the social shop, you will see that in the limited time offers, this top right slot will always give you a piece of gear. And you can hold down on it to see how many you have, but it's a good idea, even if you have a lot of a particular one, to know if that one is rare and you just haven't used them yet. That way you can purchase in the shop pieces of gear that come up that you'll need. And you'll also want to pay attention when you go into the campaign to see where you can farm that gear. So I'm here in chapter 8, and what you can see is if I scroll over, it shows you which of these is more rare than others. So this one here, which you can see I only have 9 of, the Chaos Crystal, is another rare one for mystical characters. So the ones that I know of that are rare for mystical characters to get, whether you're farming level 1, level 2, or level 3 gear, it is the Starheart Shard is very difficult to get for level 1 of the gear. The Chaos Crystal is very difficult to get at level 3, as you can see that I'm showing you here. And the Source Spark is difficult at level 2. So just because I'm here and I see that the Source Spark is here, you can see I have 2001 of those. that's not where I'm going to want to farm for level 2. So I'm going to return back to my chart here, the one that shows all our materials that we can farm. And you can see the way this is working is that for each one across here, if we're looking across a row, each of those materials has a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. So if we look at the source spark, there is a level 1 source spark, level 2 source spark, and level 3 source spark. And as I said, some are more rare than others. The level 3 is not hard to come by, but levels 1 and 2 are more hard to come by. So we want to pay attention to those. Now, so this is a good opportunity to talk about which ones are rare for each affinity. And this is sort of going based off of what I've seen as I've farmed materials. So, for example, this 5th dimensional energy, level 1, 2, or 3, is not rare. However, this rainbow looking one, the quantum field energy for level 3, is very difficult. So while levels 1 and 2 are not hard to find, level 3 is very hard to find, which is also the case with this intertron piece here for physical characters, as well as the case for the chaos crystal for level 3. So really, all 3 of these here at level 3 are very hard to find. But for levels 1 and 2, they're not hard to find. So the key is to start to memorize which ones of these are hard to find and which ones are not hard to find. Now, this row here, none of these materials here are very difficult to find. So we don't really need to remember any of these. However, some of these here in our bottom row are difficult to find. So for energy, the Astroforce energy at level 2 is very hard to find. For the, losing my spot, for the nth metal piece here, this one is a little bit more difficult to find. So that's one you're going to find yourself farming more often. And then also the source spark is difficult to find at level 2. So really all 3 of these at level 2 are very difficult to find. And then in addition to that, the source spark at level 1 is also tough to find. So those are going to be ones that you're paying attention to over and over again. So what you'll find is you have thousands of some gear and almost none of another gear. And the reason that matters is because there are, as you can see in the table here, there are 11 gear levels, and as you go up you will need more of a particular material to be able to upgrade that particular piece of gear. So let me go back to Wonder Woman and Champion of the Amazons, and let me go ahead and go back to her gear. So what I'm going to need to be able to get her up to level 8 gear is I'm going to need to farm 8 of these here. And one of the features they added, if you tap on it, is it allows you to search for it. Now they offer to allow you to buy it, but I don't recommend you doing it because you're buying it at a very premium price. So instead, we can go back to here to the upgrade events in our mystical archive, and if you recall, we are looking for level 2. Now there are 5 nodes in each of the gear material upgrade challenges, and I don't recommend doing the ones in between because you'll get fewer of each. I recommend doing the ones that are odd numbers. So if I need to farm gear level 1, you do number 1. If I need to farm gear level 2, you'll do number 3. And if you need to farm gear level 3, you'll do number 5. All right, so we needed this source spark, which you can see I only have 4 of. And the reason I hit the search button is because if I do the auto once, you can see it now shows me how many I have of that particular gear. So I still need 3 more for Wonder Woman, so I'm going to have to hit it one more time. and now we have enough. So I can go back to Wonder Woman, and we can now upgrade that piece of gear, and it'll give us a chance to see what that does when we upgrade and how it affects the character's statistics. It's already sort of showing us what it'll do, but it's going to sort of prove what it can do. So for example, the HP should go up to 1050. So I'm hitting upgrade, and if we go here, it's essentially added that into our total of Wonder Woman's HP. Now you can see I've maxed out Wonder Woman's gear for level 7, and I'm not able to go to level 8 yet because I don't have her a high enough level. So what I can do is use some of my XP to get her up to level 40. Alright, so what I'm actually going to do is subtract some of these so that I'm not overspending. Okay, so we need 3 of those. Okay. So now notice now when we level her up, it shows you how all her stats have changed based on leveling her up. Her strength, her agility, her stamina, her intelligence, her hit points, and her total power ranking, or I should say level. So this is why you want to upgrade gear, is because it takes those base stats and it adds to them. So you can see we could do this again, adding to the total of all of these statistics for the character. So this is a long way of saying that it is very important that you know your gear, that you know your rare materials, that you know what the various characteristics and statistics of your stats of your character are and what they mean, and how it affects the power level and how your character will perform in the game. I wanted this to be a shorter video than some of the ones that I've done, so it's more accessible. If you have any questions, you can certainly put them in the comments. If I got something wrong, you can point it out, but try to take it easy on me because I'm doing most of this off of the top of my head. I hope you learned something. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you didn't like the video, well then, just move along. And if you're not subscribing to my channel, I would really appreciate it. Just hit the subscribe button, and I won't see you next time.